All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Just so everybody knows, this session will be recorded. My name is Jordan Hale. I use the he series of pronouns, and I have the privilege of serving as Director of New Student Programs here at Duke. And we're honored today, pun intended, to work with the Duke Honor Council and with our student conduct team to give you all some information about how they work to build community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to AG Chancellor to go ahead and get us going.
Hello, everyone. My name is A.G. Chancellor, and I'm a rising senior here at Duke. I use the he, him, his pronouns. And we're kind of just here today to give you a little insight into kind of how we create community here at Duke and how Duke has kind of tried to structure itself so that we can have an environment where all students feel like they can learn and take advantages of the opportunities that Duke has presented itself. So we prepared a PowerPoint to kind of highlight some of the major takeaways with the community standard and the Honor Council and how that applies to your experiences on campus, especially this fall as we try to deal with new rules and regulations to try to keep people safe in the midst of this pandemic. So we're going to have space for the presentation, followed by any questions that you might have, any things you want to ask about how life at Duke might be different, anything that you can do to try to keep yourself safe and hold other students accountable, and just kind of be a resource for you guys. So that on the topic of creating community, I kind of wanted to just, do an icebreaker to kind of put everybody at ease. I know it's a very stressful time and try to get to know one another. So we opted to do roses and thorns. So rose, bud, thorn. So if you can see the PowerPoint here, a rose is something exciting or positive that has happened. A bud is something you're looking forward to. And a thorn is something negative that has happened. If anyone wants to start, or I can go first if everyone wants that. Yeah, I can start off. So a rose or something positive that has happened. Well, I had to take my LSAT like a week ago, 3 weeks ago now, and that went well. I got my score back, so that's something that was positive. A bud, I'm looking forward to having my law school applications done sometime once those come out. So I'm kind of just looking forward to starting the next phase of my academic career. And a thorn. Uh, Honestly, I don't really have much that's happened that's particularly negative. I mean, the world is a very stressful place, and that's a general thorn, but I have nothing personal that's been going on. So does anyone want to go next?
I can go AG. And to anyone else, feel free to also put these in the chat too if you don't feel like talking.
That's true.
Yeah, but oh, Jess, you want to go ahead? Jess, you can go.
I can go. All right, sure. I was just gonna say it might be easier, like if the person who goes first like calls on someone else, because I know that like in Zoom meetings, no one wants to speak up first, um, which can be kind of a downer. All right, something that arose to me is I met with my college advisor and I had a really nice conversation with her. So that was really nice. Bud is, I guess, school starting because I mean, I think it's going to be pretty cool. Either I'm taking some classes that I think I'm going to really like, and the thorn is I have like a scheduling conflict, or I don't know. And I'm still waiting to hear back from a professor about that, but they haven't responded for like 5 days. So, Jordan, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Jess, for calling on me. That's perfect. Um, so my rose, we're in the middle of this virtual onboarding experience for students, and I actually think it's going pretty well. The student engagement has been solid, so I'm thankful for that. Something I'm looking forward to is August 17th. That's the first day of classes, and that is when our team is going to take a nice little break here because we've been going pretty hard, like everyone in our division, for a while. And I think something that's negative is honestly, I just don't get to spend as much time with my family these days. But that's okay because like we're eventually going to see kind of a little bit of a break here in the next 10 days. But that would be my thorn. And Jackie, if you're there, we would love to have you go next.
Hello, I'm Jackie. Okay, so a rose, something exciting or positive. I'd say I'm excited that I get the opportunity to be on campus because I'm a rising freshman. Something I'm looking forward to, I guess, meeting new people in general. And then a thorn, something negative that's happened. Not much has happened. Honestly, probably that my housing was switched recently. That's probably the only thing I can think of.
All right, Jackie, you want to call on the last person that hasn't had a chance to share yet?
Oh yeah, Sue. Do you want to go?
I will. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
So my rose is the fact that students are coming back on campus and just coming back to Duke, whether that is in person or virtually. It's an exciting time of the year. The bud is that we got the Duke football schedule today. And that gave me some hope that we might actually play a football game this year, which would be awesome. And I've been thinking about a thorn, and I really can't think of anything. There's been, I think, as AG said in the beginning, we've got a lot of stress and concern and anxiety and hardship. And I certainly recognize that and acknowledge it, but I'm going to focus on the rose and the bud. Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for sharing. So let's see what we have up next. All right, so I don't know if you guys have gotten a chance to, or if you guys have heard much about the Duke Community Standard. Have you guys had a chance to look at it, or have you guys talked about it in other places?
I think it was something that I don't know, at least I had to fill out like a series of questions, and I had to read like a handbook or something like that that covered, I guess, student conduct, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, honestly, that's pretty much it. So, I mean, we have a Duke Community Standard, which is kind of a little book that has a bunch of different policies and kind of rules and expectations, but we like to usually summarize it by the 3 points that you see on screen. So like, I will not lie, cheat, or steal in my academic endeavors. I will conduct myself honorably in all my endeavors, and I will act if the standard is compromised. So the idea is kind of that we want to create this inclusive community, and there's multiple ways to create a community. You could rely on having enforcement mechanisms and strict rules that are constantly enforced by administrators, or you could have an environment where you have students that are kind of looking and saying, what university do I want to be a part of? And how do I want my university experience to go? And what steps and actions can me and my peers take to make sure that we create that university environment? And I truly think that's the experience that Duke tries to go for in its standard, that administrators and people in Duke and professors will step in when necessary to make sure that rules are enforced, but we're always the first line of defense, the first line of communication, namely, acting ourselves to try to uphold the standard, but also working with our peers when we see a compromise, which I believe leads us into our next slide. So what does it look like to uphold the Duke standard? We decided that we were going to put a few bullet points here just to give kind of an idea of what things are covered by the standard. So things like working with others, staying ahead of work. How do we do the community standard in an online environment where a lot of this, that you can't see if someone's cheating on a test because they're doing it behind a computer screen? And how do we uphold our personal integrity on things like that? How do we make sure that we're being cognizant of the work that we're doing? So we have an assignment last minute and you push it off to the last moment, and now you have this idea of maybe I could take this shortcut, and having the integrity not to do that. So this is just a few points. The standard is encompassing where it it's more than just the literal words on the page. As I said, it's the idea of community and what community we want to build. And this slide kind of just goes more into it. It's more than just the words on the paper. It's really about vision and seeing the university that we want to have and the Duke experience we want to have. And I think it's really important during this pandemic because the Duke that we're going back to, or you guys are fortunate enough to be able to go on campus and go back to, is going to be different than Duke has been in the past. And when you have a time where things are being constantly uprooted and you can't do things the way that they used to be done, it's also a time to reflect upon how things have been done. And if you haven't been at Duke before, it's a time to, without, the prejudice of things that's already been done, say, how do I want Duke to look? How do you envision Duke? Because I think we all come to Duke with the idea of what our college experience is going to be like. And we come to a place that's, it's an amazing university with amazing opportunities, but it also has a culture that's pre-established by the people who've already been there. And seeing as a lot of those older people won't be on campus this semester, it's really an opportunity to shape the Duke experience over the next 4 years that you want to see, and Duke can really grow in that direction. And I think the last point of that bullet is Duke also exists in a place. It's not a vacuum. Duke, we like to say that we're going out into Durham as Duke students, but we're always in Durham, and Duke is always a part of Durham. So how does our interactions with the community fit into that standard? So as you can see, we kind of try to keep it as a broad standard that encompasses a lot. And it's a vision, an aspirational standard. And this kind of goes into the idea that we have this joint responsibility of us working together with administrators to make that a reality. Now, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Also comments and concerns, anything you want to say.
I have a question. How does staying ahead, like you mentioned, office hours and meeting with TAs, how is that sticking to a standard? Because that seems like something that's optional that you don't have to do.
Yeah, so I think it's not something you have to do, but it's one component. So let's say that that's something that helps you with your academic studies, that you're someone who needs to constantly check in with professors, or that you might find yourself struggling in the class and you want to ask for help and you're worried about going to your professor. It's kind of just actions that you can take in order to help uphold the standard, because you find a lot of conduct cases are usually not people who set out to say, I'm going to cheat or I'm going to try to get an advantage. It's usually people that, for one reason or another, because Duke students have a lot of things going in their lives on and off campus, that they make a mistake in a stressful moment because they either didn't adequately prepare or life just got the better of them. So when you take advantage of resources like going to office hours and talking with professors and things like that, and you're proactive about getting ahead on your studies, it makes it less likely that you're going to fall in the trap of violating different standards because of pressure. I hope that answers your question. Feel free to follow up if it doesn't.
AG, could you talk a little bit about the Honor Council and how students might get involved if they can this year?
I'm going to be completely honest. I am not particularly sure on the Honor Council front. We had another student that did Honor Council, but I'd be happy to talk about student conduct.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so student conduct on campus, it's kind of like that more enforcement mechanism of the Duke standard. So we get people file reports or professors file reports. And in this case, when it comes to COVID guidelines, you're going to have professor and students filing reports based on incidents that happen. And not every incident is going to result in a student conduct panel. And a student conduct panel is when you have a group of 5 people, usually made up of students as well as faculty, that go over the case and actually render a decision of responsible or not responsible. Most complaints actually get handled in different processes. So someone will come and talk with the student and walk them through maybe how we could have made better choices and try to set up schedules for, if it was a pressure thing, how can they manage their time better? If it's a COVID related guideline, how can we make sure that they're keeping safe, wearing their mask, taking the proper precautions? So student conduct, I like to think of as an overarching branch that deals with policy violations. And the crux of it is to see, how can we make sure that students don't do this again? To get on the actual student conduct board of the people that actually listen to and go through cases, that's something that it's a nomination and application process in your junior year. But before that, there's different organizations on campus like Duke Reach and places like that where you can get involved with to try to really step in and help other students so that they don't end up in a student conduct process. And I think that's especially going to be important as we have guidelines. So students will be participating in the conduct process by, if you see your fellow student not wearing a mask, or you see people gathering in large groups, you know, going to them and saying, hey, maybe that's not a good idea. Or, hey, I see you forgot your mask. Here's the place that you can get it. So really kind of just being proactive and making sure that the standard is followed and the guidelines are followed for everybody's benefit.
Thank you.
No problem.
I can do my best to give a little bit of context about the Honor Council, even though they're not here. So I know that one of the things they try to do is I think it's called Honor Week. And over the course of a week, they try to provide a variety of programs so that students can think about how the Duke Community Standard kind of lives out in day-to-day practice. And they really just try to engage students with living out the community standard. And so I know that's one of the things that they try to do, and to make sure students are having an equitable experience, but also an honorable one where they're living by the things that they say that they're going to do, both when people are watching, when people are not.
So did anybody have any concerns about coming to campus? I know it can be a very stressful experience coming to campus just on its own under normal circumstances, but I know there might be a lot of anxiety about, you know, going back and how you have to conduct yourself when you get back and how you're going to make friends living in singles and things like that. Any questions that you might have, I'm happy to.
Well, the nice thing is I'm not going back to campus. I'm just staying at home. So, I mean, I think I'm glad that none of all that fuss, extra work that goes into getting used to living on my own and being in a dorm and being at college really is applicable to me, at least for this semester.
Anyone else? All right, well, that's all I had, so.
All right, well, thank you, AG. We appreciate everybody jumping on tonight. This was recorded, so we will get it transcribed and make sure to post it in the Duke Groups app. If you all have any questions at any point in time, you can send an email to our orientation account. We're excited to see you all either in person or virtually, Jess, in the next coming days. So everybody be safe, take care, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to Duke.